Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Strong Women series. I'm so excited to have Natasha Crooks with us today. She is the creator of some posts that I'm following called #DebtFreeWednesday. And so we are going to be talking a ton about finances and debt today, but also just getting to know a little bit more about her journey. Natasha, how are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
So good.
Good, good. So as Maxine said, my name is Natasha. I am originally from Jamaica, and I was raised there. I moved to Boston when I was 13, and I lived there for about 16 or so years. So that's where I went to college. That's how I know Maxine. Go Huskies. So yeah, I went to college there, did my undergraduate at Northeastern University and did my graduate degree at Boston University. And then a couple years after me graduating from my master's, the Lord told me to go to Atlanta. So that is where I'm residing right now. This summer will be 4 years that I've been here. And I, by profession, am a higher education professional, which means that I work in the college and university settings with students. So my experience is mainly in admission and financial aid. So whether it's a student trying to get to school or a student trying to figure out how they're going to pay for school, I'm your girl. My current position right now, I am in financial aid, and I am the assistant director of application and eligibility there, which means that any student that is applying for financial aid, I'm in charge of making sure that they are eligible for the types of aid they want. So that's me in a nutshell. As this post or the flyer said, I'm very, very interested and passionate about being debt-free one day. It's a passion of mine that I came to probably about September will be 2 years. So yeah, that's me.
So cool. Thank you. I didn't even know that about you. See, I'm learning stuff. I also work, but I'm on the side right before. So I'm working with students as they're getting into college and working with them, helping them understand all of those things that you're just talking about, financial aid and applications and all that stuff. So another little connection we got there. That's awesome.
Look at that. Should you ever need me, use me as a resource.
Will do, will do. Love that. So, hey, I love starting off by just learning a little bit more about names. I'm obsessed with people's names, what they mean, if they like them, if they fit them. So tell me what you know about your name.
So the only thing I really know about my name is that it's Russian. And it always comes up in conversation whenever I'm speaking to anyone with Russian descent. So that's quite interesting. I always ask my mom, like, how did you come up with my name? Why did you choose to name me Natasha? And she just said that she was sitting in church one day and she was about 6 months pregnant and she heard the name, like the Lord dropped the name in her spirit. And so that's why she chose to name me that. My dad actually wanted to name me Nicole. Because his name is Nicholas, and he wants a little recognition there. But I had cousins on both my father's side and my mother's side whose names were Nicole, so they decided to do Nicole for a middle name. But yeah, I feel like as a kid I didn't like my name. I wanted to be named Stacy. I don't know where that came from, but I grew to love it. I would say probably college going into adulthood is when I really started to embrace the name.
Yeah, it's cool. Natasha is also like, I feel like it's a very sophisticated, like, I'm an adult. I have arrived. Awesome. Well, hey, let's get into a little bit about your journey with God. What has that been like for you over the years?
Journey with God. I was always brought up in a Christian household, so church, God, the Bible has always been a part of my life. Especially growing up in Jamaica, Jamaica is kind of like what we would describe here as the Bible Belt line, in that everyone goes to church. It's a part of culture, so it was indoctrinated in me from a very young age, always very familiar. I think that as a teenager I started to feel like as I got more, and by this time I had moved to the United States, but as I got to know a little bit more outside of the church bubble, I was more so intrigued as to what is this life outside of that? And I started to actually honestly resent having to go to church, because going to church as a kid or as a teen, it was not, you don't decide not to go to church. You have to go to church. It's expected of you. And so I started to resent that. And so by the time I got to college, and was outside of my mother's house and I could make the decisions on my own, I decided I didn't want to go to church anymore. I wanted to, the life outside of God seemed sweet, the parties seemed fun, and I wanted to experience that. I wanted to live my best life. So I surely did live my best life in college. Yeah, glory to God. But I think as we were getting ready to graduate from college, at the end of 2009, I got my heart severely broken. At the same time that was happening, literally within like a week, one of my uncles who was in Jamaica, he was shot and killed. And I was very shaken by that, and kind of already on a rocky, just rocky in general. And then following the next year, right after college graduation in 2010, I was dealing with still the remnants of the broken heart. The fact that I just graduated college, the community that I had known, like everyone kind of went off to their other states, and that was hard. Yeah, right as that was happening, two of my closest friends at the time, their mothers both passed away within a week of each other. And those were like my second and third moms. So that was hard. And then 2 weeks after those deaths happened, my best friend in Jamaica, who's been my best friend since childhood, along with 3 other childhood friends, all died in a car accident. So there was just a lot of death and heaviness, and broken, like there was just a lot going on that I was dealing with that summer. And I remember I went to go visit the Ayobi Ojos, and I said something that was basically like, whatever I said, I was like, well, it says in the Bible, blah, 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 whatever I said. And Annie, who's Anna's husband, he was like, but you do know it doesn't actually say that in the Bible, right? And it was actually something that, it's kind of like a saying, but it's not actually in the Bible. Yeah. And so he didn't say it in a mean way or anything like that. I didn't feel any type of way, but I do remember in that moment feeling rocked, and then going home and just continuing to feel rocked for like a whole week, because I'm like, you grew up in the church. You used to know the Bible. How did you not know that that's not actually in the Bible? When did you stop knowing what was in the Bible? And that really, really rocked my world. And so I was wrestling with that for a while, and kind of decided at that point, like, you've gotten so far from God, who you were raised to be, who you know you should be. You've gone so far in the pursuit of wanting to see what's out there. And even looking at, there were some great moments in college, but I can even look back and say there were certain things and certain heartbreaks and certain heartaches that you endured during college that you didn't have to if you had stayed in Christ. And so I made the decision at that point, well, right before, so I was thinking about it, and then my birthday came up, which is in August. And so everyone from 2010, from different states all came to Boston. It was going to be this huge celebration. So I'm like, well, you're thinking about going back to God, but like everyone is really excited about this celebration and we have to go to the club. So we're going to put that on pause. But so we went to the club, and sometimes I wonder about my thought process, because even then I was like, these are the events of the weekend. Saturday night, we're going to go to the club, and then Sunday as a group, we're going to church. So we did that. Sunday, everyone hungover went to church, and they're like, this is so bizarre. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. But it was after that I really did decide, okay, it's time. I'm going to give my life over back to God. But again, before I did that, there was one more birthday celebration that I had to do. So I called that my going away party, and would not recommend anyone doing that, but did that. And then literally the next Sunday in my room by myself, I'm really, I don't like being seen per se by a large amount of people. So I'm not a go to the altar type of girl, but I knew exactly, I grew up in the church. I knew exactly what to do. I knew exactly how to pray the repentance prayer. And so Sunday in my room, I just prayed that repentance prayer, and that this September will be 10 years that I've been walking with Christ.
Amen. I
Yeah.
love that. And I love also, because I think sometimes we think it has to be this big, crazy moment. For some of us, it is, right? Like I definitely had like the super radical encounter with God that just like changed my life. But I think there's something so beautiful also about someone like having those small steps, right? Those things that lead up to kind of having this interaction, and having that private moment with God of knowing like, hey, I want to give my heart. I don't need an audience. I don't need everything else here. So that's beautiful. If you were to like look back at your journey with God, what's one word that you could use to describe it? What's it in a nutshell?
Colorful. Very colorful. I feel like throughout my journey, I went through very high highs with God, but I also went through very low lows with Him. And one thing that I can say about that is that He is faithful and He is consistent no matter whether or not I am. There was actually a point after basically right after moving here. Like I said before, God called me to come to Atlanta, and so in faith, I stepped out and I did what He called me to do. And immediately after doing that, like literally day one, I entered into this desert fire season. And it took me through some dark areas, and I remember at that point being very angry at God, because I'm like, you told me to come here. I'm being obedient, and this is what you literally have me going through all of these things, which then at the end, once that ended, dealt with me, left me feeling very insecure, dealing with depression, self-worth, anxiety, like all of these things that He took another 1 to 2 years for Him to take me through and heal me through. So I remember being very upset with Him, but even on being on the other end of that now, just seeing His faithfulness. He's been consistent, so yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I think that what you're saying is so spot on. I think some of us have this idea. I know I definitely did my first year of like being saved, that everything's gonna be great now, like everything is good, right? And for so many ways, like that first year, those first few months, it is very sweet because God is doing everything to show you that He loves you, right? And then after that, it's time to grow, right? It's almost time to grow, and so you kind of get hit with those things that maybe haven't been dealt with, things that were small become bigger because new issues come along. And I think for some people, it does kind of rock your faith a little bit. It rocks what your perception is of God. And I know for me, like I don't know exactly what your experience is, but I had an experience of also like having my faith rocked, and like, I thought I'm doing what you were asking me to do. Why is all this bad stuff happening? And I was really angry, but I actually didn't want to admit it at the time that I was angry with God. I was like, situation, but after like peeling away some layers there, I realized that. But I found that God was really just trying to show me more of His character, and showing that that I was still depending on things that were not of Him. And so it was actually a really good healing time for me too. So thank you for sharing that.
And you grow through it. So you grow through it, and then you're able to have a different touch with someone who is going through it. It's one thing to talk theoretically about the storm. It's another thing to have gone through a storm and then encourage someone else who's going through. So yeah.
I love that. Cool. So talk to me a little bit about this mission that God's put on your heart, this vision, this dream of, being debt free. Tell me where it started, and tell me what steps you've taken of obedience to get there.
Yeah. So a number of years ago, I went to a bookstore and purchased Dave Ramsey's book, Total Money Makeover. And at that point, it was my goal to read, get educated, get my finances together. Boom, we got this. And that book stayed on my shelf for about 5 years, unread. So, you know, but I'm here now in Atlanta. I think 2 years into being here, I had just finished another book and went on my bookshelf to decide, you know, okay, what are you gonna read next? And then I saw the book and I'm like, oh, you never even read this book. Like, please read this book. I read the book and it changed my whole entire life. And as soon as I finished reading the book, I was like, at that moment, I'm gonna pursue debt freedom. I'm gonna get debt free. I'm gonna do this. And so after doing that, I made an Instagram post just to say, hey guys, I just read this book and I've been inspired to be debt free. So I'm just telling you guys because this is social media, and now if I tell you guys, I can't like back out. There's a level of accountability there. And I'll just share from time to time during my journey as things go on. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. I made that post the following week. After doing that, I started to tally up everything that I owed. And I'm very transparent about my journey. So I think I rounded up because I just like round numbers. The total amount of debt / bills that I had was like about 48,000 and some change. So I was like, let's just call it 50. That's a nice round number. Let's just call it 50,000. And that's where we're starting off with. And so according to Dave Ramsey's book, the best way to attack is the snowball method, in which you are listing your debts from largest to smallest, and you're paying on your smallest debt first. You're paying on your smallest debt first, and once you clear that, you're using the minimum, whatever you paid for your smallest debt, and you're adding that to the minimum for your next smallest debt, and so on and so forth until you get to the largest one. So that's what I did to come up with my little $50,000 and say, okay, we're gonna start knocking this out. The first one was pretty easy for me because I had a sizable savings account. And the emergency fund was like, you need $1,000, and I had more than that. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just use whatever it is minus 1,000 and try and pay off whatever. I paid off my phone. So I had the Samsung Galaxy, I think 9, I don't know. But I had that, and when I got it, I was paying a monthly installment of $30 on top of my regular bill to pay for that phone. So I paid for that outright. And when I did that, I shared that on social media just to be like, hey, I cleared my first debt. And that's kind of how it started. So after the third post, I realized that I just happened to always post on Wednesday for whatever reason. And so I was like, you know what? We're going to call this hashtag Debt Free Wednesday. And so on Wednesdays, I'm going to start giving you updates. It's not going to be every week, but you know, whatever. That's what I thought at that point. But I don't know, I just had something new to say every single Wednesday. And so I started, you know, saying it every single Wednesday. And again, it was more so for accountability purposes and just letting people know, like, hey, I'm a regular person going through this journey. I don't make 6 figures, you know, but I'm making this journey and, you know, doing what I can to establish what I want to establish. And there was one week where I didn't post anything, and people started DMing me, and they're like, where's Debt Free Wednesday? We didn't see Debt Free Wednesday. And I was like, oh, so I mean, again, it was for accountability purposes, but I did not think that people would be as interested and as excited as they are. The job that I was working at the time that it started, I'm connected to my coworkers on Facebook and Instagram. And so they would come up to my cube and be like, it's Debt Free Wednesday. What are you going to say for Debt Free Wednesday? Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Oh, I didn't think about doing that. Now I'm going to call my car insurance. So like when I give out tips or stuff, I'm like, oh, you guys are paying attention to me. Oh, okay, this is nice, I guess. Okay, cool. And so that's how it kind of became a thing.
I love that, because honestly, one of the things I was chatting with you before this, and I was just saying, like, one of the greatest things is, like, you have been so consistent. And so, like, when I think of your name, I think of hashtag Debt Free Wednesday. So I was like, oh, when I'm thinking of women that I want to bring on to Strong Women, like, your name was one of them. And I was like, yeah, I want to be able to talk about finances. What could I do? Yep, Natasha, she's doing it. She's doing it consistently. And what I love about you is that you were able to start with something small, right? Phone. And I think for so many people, that first step is the scariest one. And so we just kind of put it off. We're very much in this mindset of like, hey, let's spend everything we've got now. YOLO, you only live once, so, you know, whatever. And actually what we're doing is we're delaying the kind of actual lifestyle we can have later on. And so I think a lot of it has to do with stewardship and accountability. And I have really enjoyed seeing your posts throughout and seeing those like milestones, those little milestones that you've had. And it's been super encouraging. And I was sharing with you also, like, I'm also on the debt-free journey. I didn't post it all as consistently as, I posted when I had made like a huge milestone and I was like, hey guys, I did this. But it's been something that's been very consistent for me for a few years as well. Dave Ramsey, shout out to him, because honestly, I needed somebody to yell at me. I'm not gonna lie. And I'm not even, you know, my relationship with money wasn't terrible. Like I was never like a big spender. I didn't have consumer debt. I had a ton of student loans, like a scary amount of student loans. And so that was really my struggle. And I felt like even though I'm working hard, even though I'm being careful with my money, like this debt is crushing me. I would actually sometimes wake up feeling just this weight and panic. I remember I would cry sometimes. I'd call my mom and being like, I don't know how I'm gonna like make this. And I just, honestly, I didn't see a way out. And I think what was frustrating to me also was like, I was seeing people who were paying off their debt, but it wasn't people with my kind of debt. So it was like, oh, like you're crying about $2,000. Like, all right, like, you know, I wish I had $2,000. Not that $2,000. Like, if you have a $2,000 debt, pay it off. But I'm just saying, you know, I felt very discouraged. So when I found this community in Financial Peace University and Dave Ramsey of people who, like exactly what you said, there were regular people with regular jobs, you know, attacking this and saying, hey, I'm actually going to be debt free. I needed him to yell at me because he's very feisty. If you've never heard him, it's like, you know, it's what we need to hear because, again, I know people have different relationships with money and people have different goals for money. But if you are somebody who is struggling and you're feeling that anxiety and that weight, maybe it's because you're not supposed to be living your life that way. So take a chance on that. Amazing. So I guess the other thing I love what you were saying is that you kind of became an accidental influencer, your circle, your space, right? So that's incredible. And I think that that's an amazing part of your testimony as well. Again, just being faithful with the small, but look at how many people you've impacted, people who are like now looking towards you. So what's been the most, I guess, difficult thing on this journey for you?
Once I set my mind to do something, I want to do everything right now. Like I want to do it right now. And so that works for me in good ways and in bad ways. In good ways that I will pick up and I will work as hard as I can to do whatever needs to be done. But in not so good ways that back when I wasn't spending wisely, it would then mean that I would throw something on a credit card if I didn't have the money to do what I wanted to do right now, because again, I want it right now. And so The most difficult thing is not being able to just write a $50,000 check and be like, debt free. That has been hard. So again, good in that I will continue to work towards it, but bad in that, I just want it, I want it right now. And with that, I've had to check myself and recenter myself a few times because right now I'm tackling paying off my credit card, which, by the way, you guys are going to hear this first, even before it's a post on social media. So, ooh, the exclusive. But next week, Thursday, I'm going to make the final payment on my credit card. And I would have paid off $10,000 in credit card debt.
Congratulations. That's
thank
huge.
you. Oh my gosh. But I've had to recenter and check myself because I wanted to get it done so badly. I do little side incomes, a little side hustle, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But I do little side hustles to create additional income so that on top of my minimum payment, I can make more money. And sometimes I will work too much. I will stretch myself too thin and not give myself the self-care, the mental care, the spiritual care that is needed. And so I have to remind myself every once in a while, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. You gotta make sure that you can't dip out on having quiet time with the Lord because you're too tired, because you're out too late doing this thing. Like, put first things first. And when you put first things first, everything else will be added on to you. Okay. So that's really been the most difficult thing, not being able to do it immediately, and also pacing myself and not basically killing myself trying to meet the goal too soon.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think you're absolutely right. Something even good as this can become another idol, right? It can be something that we're serving. And so we're still serving this goal of being debt free. So always have to put kind of God first. That's amazing. So I guess I'll ask a couple more questions. One, you mentioned that you had a couple other side hustles. Do you want to tell us about any of them?
Yeah, so when you're looking to make additional income, you get real crafty. So my whole thing, again, I work full time, 40 hours a week. For my whole thing was I needed to find something that, number one, was flexible. I also needed the flexibility to say, if today I'm just feeling really tired, I'm just not going to do it. So that was what I was looking for, flexibility. I was looking for ways to how can I make as much money in as little time? And it's not a matter of, being greedy and just wanting to make a lot of money, but I'm just trying to be smart with the fact that, you have a whole other full-time job. You're also trying to work out and be healthy. No one has time for all of this. So how can I make the most money in the smallest amount of time? The first thing that I came across was mystery shopping, which prior to seeing this, I never heard of before. I think I was listening to a Dave Ramsey episode. So basically, mystery shopping is somebody hires you to come in and to pretend to be a customer to evaluate if, what their establishment is are they doing what they're supposed to do. I can tell you the types of things I did. So a lot of them were restaurants. I wouldn't do the restaurants too often because restaurants were more so reimbursements. But if I wanted to treat myself to a meal, instead of going out and spending money, I would do a mystery shop and ultimately get a free meal. They would say you can spend a maximum of $25, $40, whatever dollars. I'd spend that, submit the receipt, and they would reimburse me. Most of what I did were not reimbursements, but some that paid out. So I would pretend to be interested in joining a particular gym. I would go on a tour of the gym, see if the associates said everything that they were supposed to say, and they give you a printout of what they're supposed to say. Sometimes it would require me to work out. So on this health and fitness journey free workout, Jesus, what I started doing more frequently last April into now, actually, well, not now because we're quarantined. So last April into the beginning of March was Uber. I became an Uber driver. I was really skeptical about it at first. I really didn't want to have to do it. The thought of being a woman and having strangers come in my car. But I, stepped out, prayed over it, felt peace about it. Stepped out and started doing that, and I was able to consistently bring in, it was a goal that I set for myself, so I was able to consistently bring in an extra $200 a week, which is $800 a month to put towards that. And so that was a big thing in helping me clear out that credit card debt. More recently, I just signed up with Amazon Flex, and I'm just giving y'all ideas if y'all want income, additional income. But I did Amazon Flex, and ultimately Amazon has you, I can make the same amount of money that I make with Uber in the same amount of time, and even potentially a little bit more, and I don't have to have people in my car. So Amazon hires me to be an independent contractor. I use my own vehicle. I sign up for a slot, let's say Tuesday from 5 to 8. They give me some packages to deliver, and I just deliver it to people. I don't necessarily have to see people unless they specifically say deliver specifically to the recipient, but I just boom, bam, bam, and it's done. That's what I've been doing to create additional income. If you can carve out the time to do it, I would definitely recommend doing that. But I still have my boundaries in terms of, okay, Natasha, we're not going to work on Sundays. That is the Sabbath. That is the day that you're resting, you're going to church, you're feeding your spirit, you're serving. So again, you put first things first, and every other thing is added onto you.
Love it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for all of those resources, and we'll put some links down there too to help folks, and also your link for your pages. But we're going to close out in just a second, but just if you could give me maybe a couple of resources that you've been reading, or maybe a podcast you've been listening to or watched that you just kind of want to shout out, I'd love to hear that.
So let me actually, grab this really quickly. So of course I do Total Money Makeover, Dave Ramsey, highly, highly recommended. And what I really love about what he talks about in the book is that it's not like this is theoretical. There are thousands and thousands of people who have done this exact thing, and they've been successful. So it's been proven time and time and time again. Lately, I had, in addition to listen to the Dave Ramsey podcast, I also listened to Chris Hogan, who is out of Dave Ramsey. So a lot of that is the same. I also listened to Journey to Launch. That is also a finance podcast, and it's Journey to Launch on Instagram also. And then I also listen to the Clever Girl podcast, which is also finance. So there are a number of different finance podcasts. Like, I just want to inundate my mind with everything finance, just because I didn't go to school for this. I'm not fully versed on stocks, investments, all of these other things, which kind of comes after getting rid of the debt. But knowledge is key, education is key, and if I can learn from other people who have done it or who are expert in the field, then it will help me get to what my ultimate goal is once I get debt free. So
good. Well, thank you so much. And we definitely, again, recommend that you check out Financial Peace University or Total Money Makeover. The first step is just trying to save $1,000. And so that can be $20 a day. The time is going to pass anyway. So just start saving and attacking that debt. Natasha, thank you so much for just being open with your journey with us and for taking the time to chat with us and even share some tips and some tricks in there for more additional income. And yeah, we just thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you for having me. And, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Natasha Crooks on Facebook, C as in cat, Rooks. And I'm sure Maxine will put this in the notes also, but I'm on Ask My Stilettos. So if you guys want to see what I've been doing so far, hashtag Debt Free Wednesday, hashtag Journey to Debt Free. I typically do post on Wednesdays. Feel free to follow me. Feel free to ask me questions. I'm pretty transparent with what my journey's been like.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.